Hello and welcome to this month's webinar. I'm here every month on YouTube talking to a weight loss expert, and this month I'm talking to Dr. Aria, who is a behaviour change psychologist and weight maintenance expert who specialises in long-term behavioural changes and mindfulness. He's developed a science-based method for losing weight based on his studies, and he's a big believer in changing your mindset instead of yo-yo dieting. So Dr. Aria, thank you. A brief introduction to your weight loss philosophy and what it sort of revolves around.
Yes, so my method came out of research which I was carrying out at UCL, and essentially it was looking at, there's an established body of research looking at weight loss, and we know that people really struggle with their weight. And last year around half the nation tried to lose weight, and it's a complex problem, but a big part of the problem is that our solution, the first port of call for dealing with the weight gain, is not only is it an ineffective strategy, but it's actually counterproductive, and that is going on diets. So whenever you look at diets, there's a clear and consistent body of evidence that no matter what diet you go on, whether it's low fat, low carb, the outcome will be the same. And that is that people generally lose weight in the first 6 months, but then they gradually regain that lost weight. And researchers have studied this across the world, and it's a pretty robust finding that weight gain occurs, and 1 to 2/3 of people actually regain more weight than they lost in the first place. So my research was looking at something called weight loss maintenance, and that's how can you actually keep weight off? How can you sustainably lose weight for the long term so that you're not just yo-yo dieting and crash dieting and losing weight and regaining it, but you're able to get all those health benefits in the long term. And yeah, do you want to jump in there? Or
I was just going to say, so much of that resonates, and I think it will resonate with a lot of people watching, that you go on a diet hoping that you lose loads of weight, and then after a few months you find yourself in the same position as you were before. So yeah,
it's really frustrating because a lot of the time people feel like they failed, and they think, I must be weak-willed, or I'm lazy, or I just don't have the discipline, and it's my fault because I failed this diet, rather than realizing actually the strategy is flawed, the diet failed the person, is the way that I reframe it. But people don't know that, so then they're looking for the next diet and think, okay, well, Atkins didn't work, but let me try this one. Maybe this one will hold the answer. And something else comes out in the media and it says, actually, all you need to do is eat this type of food or avoid that type of food. And it creates excitement initially, and people think, okay, and the press say we've got the new holy grail and it's in the form of a pill or a spray or whatever it is. But it's continually just another fad or another quick fix which isn't sustainable. And again, the person regains the weight, and it actually has, not only is it detrimental physically, but that psychological impact is people start to think, maybe I can't change. Maybe I'm just this way and I'm going to have to keep on putting on the weight. And they get to a point where they can never even imagine being able to be lighter, or be healthier, or be fitter. And that's the bit which I think is the most crushing, because it really hits people's self-esteem and their self-confidence, and they don't feel good about themselves, and they don't feel confident about their bodies. And a lot of it's very, very secretive and very shameful. We don't talk about it, particularly as men. We don't generally talk about our feelings or say, I'm feeling really, really bad about myself right now, or how I look. And so, and when it hits your self-esteem, your self-confidence, it then has so many effects, with your relationships, with work, the opportunities you put yourself forward for, because it's all playing a part in terms of confidence.
Yeah, definitely. But you can kind of see why people would think that they're a failure if they try so many diets and they don't work for them. It's human nature to think I'm a failure and I can't do it. So
absolutely, it's completely natural, and we all do it. We're meaning-making machines. We'll see a pattern, as humans, and then we'll try and draw some sort of conclusion. But we're looking in the wrong direction. We're putting our focus on ourselves, and we're thinking that that's what's flawed, when actually what we need to do is shift the attention to the diet and realize that actually it's the diet that's not working. And I need to start to shift my mindset from that point of view, because we've probably all heard that definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's what we're doing with diets, doing the same strategy over and over and over again. And sometimes it's not until people are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, the clients I have, and they suddenly wake up to the fact that actually I need a different way. And this just isn't working. I've worked with clients who've told me they have tried every diet under the sun, going back 40, 50 years to the cabbage soup diet, to the banana diet, to all these random things. And, more recently, keto diets and intermittent fasting and things which are really popular and gain a lot of traction and seem really exciting, but ultimately don't seem to last for most people.
So it is like, you can see diets are not the way to go, but it's really easy, I think, to just say, don't diet.
Yeah.
Where do you begin to make these like practical changes that will help you in the long run?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is, so the first piece of advice I'd say is to start to shift your mindset. Every time someone talks about a diet or you're thinking about going on a diet, recognize that that is not the solution. Because, and I'll just quickly go through why from a psychological point of view, it also doesn't help. Diets are, going on a diet, it's binary, it's all or nothing. You're either on the diet or you're off it. And people then end up falling into these extremes where they feel like they're either militant and they're on top form and they're not even letting a carb touch their mouth, and they're saying no to any chocolate biscuits, and they don't have dessert, and they're feeling strong and righteous, and this is going really well for 3 days, and then they have a bite of cake and it all falls apart because their mind kicks in and it says, you've ruined it now, you've messed up. And then another voice comes in and says, do you know what, screw it, you've had a slice of cake, you may as well have another one. And it spirals out of control. And so what we need to recognize is that actually long-term change is about creating small, sustainable, gradual steps. The biggest mistake people make is they try and make radical, extreme changes to their lifestyle. So it could be related to what they eat, or it could be related to exercise. But they try and suddenly just change everything. And when you look at the science of habit, we know that actually the simpler the behavior, the easier that it becomes ingrained into someone's lifestyle, the more easily it becomes automatic. So you want to start really small. What I say to everyone is start wherever you are. You can start today, you can start now, but start where you are now. If you are, if you haven't ever been to the gym and you don't do any form of exercise, start with doing a 5-minute walk once a day. And that's just something that you build into your routine. Okay, do a 5-minute walk at this time, straight after lunch, and it's just 5 minutes, or as soon as I get home, and that's it. And once that builds into your lifestyle, it'll become a lot easier. You want to make the step so small it'd be difficult to say no to it. And from then, you can build other things into your life. And so, like when that's easy, it might be a 10-minute walk, or you might find one class that you really enjoy that you want to do, or it might, or it could be playing football with the boys once a week, and you just go and that's it. That's just that once a week. But you really want to start small, and you want to find something that you enjoy, something which gives you that sense of pleasure or satisfaction, and just begin there. When it comes to eating, I would say, again, start really, really small. Start wherever you are, and just, while I don't recommend going on a diet, I do recommend improving the quality of our diets, i.e., of what we're eating. So, if you always have a a large Mars bar at 3 o'clock. Start by just going for an average size Mars bar, or cutting down to a one of the mini ones. Something really, really small and sustainable, though, that you can just build into that part of the day. Or instead of having, even if it's something really simple, like if you're used to having dessert every night and you have double cream, cut down to single cream. And then one day you might move to Greek yogurt. You might then start having more fruit. Whatever it is, though, we want to start small. We want to keep it sustainable, and we want it to be gradual. The analogy I use is, we don't brush your teeth once and then expect your teeth to be clean for the rest of our lives. If you're a sports person, if you want to, be a better footballer or golfer, you don't do an intense 1 week course of, training in football or golf and then expect to be a great player. It's about just doing these things regularly.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think what people like about going on a diet is the rules that you get to follow, but it doesn't have to be that strict, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing, like you say. So I think that's a really good way to look at it. Just little tiny steps.
Little tiny steps. And if you like rules, if you know that you like rules, you can create you can create a plan and map out, what do I really want to achieve this week? How will I, this is my goals, where I want to get to, and how will I do it? So you can be very concrete and specific about what it is that you need to do. But like you're saying, it's having this longer term mindset, realizing this is the long game. This is not just what I'm doing this week and next week, but this is what I'm going to be doing next year, and in 3 years, and 5 years, and 10 years. And it will grow and progress and evolve. But a question I often ask is, can you imagine doing this for the next year?
Yeah, that was what I thought one day. I had some success doing a unnamed slimming club. And one day I just thought, am I actually going to count points every day for the rest of my life? Because I'm not going to. And that was sort of like a wake-up call for me, that actually it needs to be something that I can do on my own, that I don't have to think about. So that's what I'm trying to work on anyway.
And we're all working on it. It's all, we never have it. We're never, even me, this is my career, my profession, my passion. I'm still learning every day. I'm still just taking one day at a time, and really enjoying my food and savoring it, but realizing that we all have these tendencies of the brain to be extreme, to be all or nothing, to convince ourselves, do you know what? Just have more. Like, there's that part of the brain which is linked to reward and pleasure, and it's never satisfied. If I'm at a buffet, it will continually be saying to me, go and get another plate, another bowl of ice cream, more chocolate brownies, more. Like, it just wants more. It's never satisfied until, literally, if you listen to that part of your brain continually, you just eventually have to be carried out in the restaurant, and that's not pleasant for anyone. So it's a learning curve for everyone, but it never ends. I often say to my clients, health doesn't have a finish line. Often we think, once I reach there, it'll be done, and we apply that to different areas of our lives. But actually, it's an ongoing process, and it's much better to focus on just what you're doing for that day than getting too caught up on where you're actually heading and how close or far away you are from that goal.
Yeah. So we had a question on Twitter from James, who asked how he can keep the momentum going if he's used to the not instant, but quick results that he's been getting doing a diet. He says that he did Slimming World and they give you stickers. So I guess you could get your own stickers and
Yeah.
Yeah, but what are your tips for keeping that momentum going when you're not seeing the quick results?
Yes, I would say 3 tips that come to my head. One we've already covered, and that's keeping it small and sustainable and gradual, and remembering that all these changes, when they're incremental, It's all the little 1%ers. How can I just change this by 1%? They build up over time, and you will look back and be surprised at how far you've come. The second one is to focus on the process. So I touched upon this just briefly a minute ago, focus on the process rather than the outcome. So what I mean by that is the way that most people think, their mindset is focused on where they're trying to get to. So they might think, right, I want to, let's say they're 100 kilograms and I want to be 85. That 85 kilogram marker is continually in their head. Or for someone else, it might be to fit into a certain clothing item. The problem with that is you can't control your weight. And people think they can, but you can't. You cannot. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't get on a scale and say the weight will be this. You can control your actions, which will hopefully move you in that direction, but there'll be differences in water fluctuation depending on even the level of hormones in our body, how much food is in our gut, all these different things which will change the weight on the scale on that day. When people get really focused on the outcome, then when they step on the weight and it isn't what they wanted it to be, they lose motivation. And they go, what, are you joking me? Like, I went out last night, I deliberately didn't have dessert, and I put weight on. What's the point? And it just throws them off. And so then they spiral into, well, I may as well X, Y, and Z. If you focus on the process, no matter what the outcome is, all you can do is try and do your best for that day. So if you know that actually, do you know what, let's say I hit 10,000 steps and I made a really good decision for lunch and I had a healthy snack in the afternoon, great, I did the 3 things I'd set out to do that day, job done. And then you feel good, and then you get ready for the next day. Taking a step back, whatever goal you want to achieve, it will only be achieved through taking action. So we have to take those actions. So really the most prudent thing to do is to focus on those actions and let go of the outcome. The outcome will come as having that belief that, if I'm doing the right things consistently over days, weeks, months, the outcome I will get there. But I can't control how quickly I get there. And the third thing I say is to celebrate your successes, even if they're tiny, even if it's, even if you're at a work buffet and you don't smash it like you usually do, or you have 1 slice of cake instead of 3 whenever it's being passed around the office. Celebrate that and say, do you know what? I did a pretty good job. And so many of us are just not used to doing that, and particularly men. We're not used to saying you've done a good job, because that part of our brain kicks in that says, well, do you know what? You should be better anyway. Like, we hold these unspoken perfectionistic standards and say, well, you shouldn't have had any slice of cake, so 1's still a failure. Or you should have had only steamed fish and grilled vegetables, so, by having a couple of chips, you failed as well, when actually that's not the case. So we need to recognize these perfectionistic standards and recognize that we are all imperfect and we're all just trying our best. So there is no set way of how you should be. If you've made an improvement compared to where you are normally, well done, and celebrate that. And it can either just be recognizing yourself inside and saying, job well done, I can move on to the next one, or it could be an actual reward. I spoke to someone who really got into cycling and would give themselves, or they could buy, at the end of the week, if they hit their actions, their daily actions for that week. So irrespective of weight, if they hit what they wanted to achieve, they would get themselves a new piece of kit for their bike, or it could be something else that isn't food related.
Yeah, because when I think of a reward, I just think of food, which is not helpful.
Actually, it's one of the, because I love food, and so it's often one of the things which my mind will instantly come up with. You've done well. Have some cake.
Yeah, yeah, it's everywhere, because you celebrate something and you have like cake, but then you're feeling down.
Yeah.
The cake is there too. Yeah, so it's a minefield, I think. But
It's a minefield, and it's also recognizing though that so I love cake. I eat cake every week, uh, so it's recognize. And whenever I do, though, I give myself permission to really enjoy it, and rather than just having, you know, for me, I'd rather there's a bakery nearby that do homemade cakes, and they're so good, like they're really delicious. And my wife's favorite one is a cherry bakewell, so whenever it's in, it's a winner. I'd rather have one slice of really good cake, maybe once a week, than a slice of cake from a supermarket bought one that's been prepackaged and made, a month ago and doesn't taste that good. Still, it's cake. Can cake be bad? That's debatable. But it's sometimes it's about saying, do you know what? Maybe I'd rather have, if I'm going to have it, choose the place, choose it because you're really going to enjoy it. Choose your favorite one, and then really give yourself permission to savor it and enjoy it, and let go of any feelings of guilt, because life's also to be enjoyed. No one wants to give up. No one that I know really wants to give up cake for the rest of their life, or chocolate, or cheese, or whatever it is.
That's another thing that makes diets unsustainable as well. Like, I know people who have said, right, I'm cutting out cake, but then they will eat a cake that's made with Weetabix and loads of sweetener every day, and you just think, wouldn't you rather just have one slice of really nice cake, like once a week, instead of having whatever that Weetabix thing is?
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's another thing with diets, is that psychologically we've tested this. We run it in laboratories and we've seen it. As soon as you ban a food, as soon as you forbid it, what happens?
You want it.
Want it more. Yeah. And we've measured it. The intensity of liking for that food goes up, so it becomes much more tempting. And we've also tested that whenever we then give that food to the person, or offer it, so it's on a table in a room, the group that are being told that they can't have it for a day or a week, they've done it over a day or 7 days, they then eat more of that food than the group that were told, well, you can have it if you want, or you can leave it if you want.
Yeah.
So, and that's the problem. Almost every diet or structured program demonizes some form of food. Either grains are the enemy, or sugar is, or fat is, or gluten or something is suddenly created to be the enemy. And as soon as you do that, you just make that food more tempting. And we know that willpower is limited. We're never going to be able to suddenly just never have that type of food again. So when we do, everything just falls apart.
Yeah. This ties into something that David had asked on Facebook. He said, how can I break my year-long habit of constantly wanting pudding after dinner, as that's what I'm finding the hardest thing to break? So what would your advice be for him? Would it be to, stop focusing on trying to ban pudding? What would you say?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. Sometimes going back to first principles, as why am I trying to stop having pudding in the first place? So it's helpful not to see any part of the meal as good or bad. That being said, let's say that did you say it was David?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's say David is having I don't know, some sort of let's say he's having apple crumble and custard every night, and he knows that he's taking in a lot more energy than he needs, and that's something that he wants to address. I completely understand that. So there's two routes you could go to. One, we can look at the amount of what we're eating, and another, we can look at the quality of what we're eating. So one option would be to think, okay, how can I just have a little bit less? And again, it's not about, so rather than suddenly just saying, okay, I'm going to stop having pudding every night, what about even making that portion size 5 to 10% smaller? That's all we're talking about. We're talking about like a spoon or two, something that's almost so small that you might not even notice. And once that's in play, and it becomes less over time, then you could reduce it more. And at the same time, if you want, you can also improve the quality of it. So, like we were saying, going from double cream to single cream to Greek yogurt, or rather than having a store-bought apple crumble, would there be a way of making it yourself, or having half of the store-bought one, but then literally just steaming some apples, take a few minutes in a pan and adding more fruit to it, so that you're getting more fruit and less of the sugary, crumbly topping. Um, and it's just making really small changes to then improving the quality, so that we're going to much more natural whole foods, and potentially reducing the amount. But what I generally focus on is quality. We know that it's for a long time, science has been working on the principle that a calorie is a calorie. Now we know that, I mean, a calorie, it's a truism. A calorie will always be a calorie. But what people think is, if I have 2,000 calories of certain foods and 2,000 calories of another foods, I'll have the same outcome. The latest evidence is suggesting that isn't the case. It does actually make a difference, even if it's the exact same number. So there was a study at Harvard, and they looked at that, where they took the same people and they gave them different patterns of eating. And one of them was having high glycemic index carbohydrates. So that'd be things that spike your blood sugar levels. So, processed foods, sugary foods, more like white bread, pastries, cakes, that kind of thing. And the other was having more low glycemic index foods. So more whole grains, maybe like brown rice or quinoa or vegetables, same number of calories. With the group that had the healthier carbohydrates, they actually lost more weight, even though they're doing the same number of calories, same amount of exercise, because one, it boosted their metabolism, so their metabolism raised, and two, we think it affects the hormone levels in our body, which means that it affects how much fat we store. So really, I'd say to David, is just try and improve, rather than trying to outright say I'm going to get rid of my desserts. See if you can just improve the quality of it really slowly in a sustainable way, having foods that you enjoy, that you really like, and I think you'll be able to get to your outcome.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is there anything?
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
I say that doesn't resonate with you, or you've got another opinion.
No, that's great. I think David's question in itself, it sounds like he's beating himself up a bit for wanting to have pudding every night. I think, yeah, if he can improve the quality of what he's eating, then I think he will probably be happy with that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's thinking, what am I trying to achieve here? Why am I trying to break this habit? Because some things are very ingrained. Some people are used to having dessert since they've been a child, so they're dealing with something that they've been associating with for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. I just seem to have this association in my mind that unless I have something sweet, the meal isn't quite over. Like, it just seems to be like that little cherry on top that then I can go, job done. And I used to be used to having a dessert which was more like ice cream or cake or some sort of other pudding. I remember the first time I went to it was my girlfriend then, but my wife's house, and we had a meal with her parents. And for dessert, they had a huge fruit bowl. So it had like blueberries and strawberries and raspberries and mangoes and kiwi and all sorts of different fruit. And yeah, initially thinking that looks nice, but where's the pudding?
Where's the ice cream to go with this fruit?
Totally. And it was so different for me, but we ended up going out every week. And then after a certain period of time, I just began to get used to that. Actually having a really big bowl of fruit was something that became satisfying for me. And then at the weekends, they'll maybe get so they'll have that daily, every night, big bowl of fruit. But then the weekends, we'll have ice cream or have something else with it. But for your everyday foods, one way to think about it is, what am I eating every day and what am I eating sometimes? For your everyday foods, if you're having something every single day, like cake or ice cream or a big pastry, it might be difficult to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Whereas if you can shift that into having it sometimes and then really improving the quality of your everyday foods, you can create that balance where it's a bit more kind of like 80%, it's really high quality, and 20%, I relax and I really enjoy, having that shared dessert with friends or with my brother. We love getting a tub of Ben and Jerry's cookie dough and making making cookies together and having that. And that's a nice thing that we do whenever we meet up.
Yeah. Sort of related to that, Craig asks how he can disassociate food from comfort, because that's another thing I think that's so ingrained and can be 20, 30 years of that behavior. How do you even begin to unpick that?
Yes. Wow. So we can look at that from two angles. One is evolution and the other is society. So from an evolutionary point of view, food is pleasurable. It is intrinsically pleasurable, meaning that you don't need to try and like food. Your brain just likes it. As soon as we have developed a taste for sweet, salty, high-fat foods, it lights up the reward circuitry in the brain that drives us to want to eat more of it. So trying to untangle pleasure from food, I would say is going against grain. But then you've also got the societal, exactly like you said, the societal conditioning where we've learned to associate food with comfort. So it's even more than just pleasure, but it's really comforting. And often that's whenever we were kids, we'd run and then fall and hurt ourselves, and our parents say, "Oh, come here," would give us a hug and say, "We'll get you a glass of milk and a chocolate biscuit." And be like, "Excellent, I feel so much better." Or
Girl started doing that when she falls over or hurts herself. She'll ask immediately for a yogurt, for a little petit flu sugar-filled pot, and I keep thinking to myself, I gotta nip this in the bud. But
yeah. So it's learned, and it's very powerful because we're dealing with brain chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, that gives us these pleasurable feelings. So again, trying to fight against it. That's why often people are caught in a struggle where they think, what's wrong with me, because I need to try and dissociate that. What I'd more say is recognizing that it's okay to eat food and enjoy it. But I do understand that what Craig might be saying is, like, there's certain times when I'm eating food and I'm not hungry. And actually, I think what will be at the bottom of that is Craig could be eating to change how he feels. And we all do that to a certain extent. And that's natural and it's understandable. But if we're doing that too much, if that's our number one strategy for changing how we feel and we're too reliant upon it, it'll have other consequences and we might then be heavier than we want to be. So the first step is to recognize, when am I eating? What is it that's triggering eating when I feel out of control, or I feel emotional? I feel like I just need to eat. It's not a relaxed, conscious decision to eat. It's more, I need to have that. And see what is below that. So for some people, it might be boredom. Bored, and I want something to do, and then they'll go and pick up food. For other people, it might be anxiety. They're feeling anxious. They might have a big presentation coming up, and so they go to the fridge. Like you were saying earlier, it can be when we're feeling low and we're just feeling really crap about ourselves or about our day or something in our life, or we have an argument with a loved one and we turn to food. As much as possible, or for other people, they're feeling stressed. They've got something coming up that they need to deal with that they haven't been tackling, difficult conversation with a colleague or whatever it is, and then they turn to food instead. So if we can just gain a bit more awareness, so all starts, the foundation of lasting health is awareness, getting a bit more awareness and recognizing, okay, actually, I'm stressed, rather than instantly going for the food. What we could start to do is think, if just take a few breaths, take a few slow, deep breaths. And what that does is, if you can exhale for longer than you inhale, so let's say even just breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 8, it actually has a physiological response. It puts a brake on something called the vagal nerve, and it reduces your blood pressure and it reduces your heart rate. So you just become a little bit more relaxed, and it gives you a little bit of space, a little bit of headspace to think, okay, what is actually going on here? I am stressed about work. And then you can think, okay, what do I need to do here? What would really, really help? And it might be, actually, I need to do an email and ask for an extension, or I need to email and ask for help, or I need to delegate that piece of work to someone else, or I need to take that by the horns and deal with that. Or if you're bored, it might be, I need to read a book or watch something on Netflix. Or if you're low, maybe it'd be more helpful to call a friend. Or if you've had an argument with your wife, maybe you need to apologize to her and not do that next time. So whatever it is, we can start to gain a bit more awareness. And what we're doing is we're moving from automatically reacting to more consciously responding. Because when we automatically react, we don't even think about it. We just go, we open the fridge, we grab something. But if we can just bring a bit of awareness and see what's actually going on here, we realize that actually, and we can remind ourselves what will happen if I just go in and demolish the entire tub of ice cream. I'm actually going to feel worse afterwards. I'm going to feel like I've just, not only am I failing in that part of my life, but now I've messed up by eating that. And
Yeah.
so we can start to take.
Yeah, when you take a step back, food isn't actually going to help whatever you're feeling. Like, if you have had an argument with your wife, for example, is eating a whole tub of Ben and Jerry's going to make it better? No. I don't know. And that trying to keep that in mind is really difficult. And like you say, it's so automatic to just think like, oh, I'm feeling really crap, I'm just gonna grab this ice cream.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it can be helpful. That's what often I call it ABC. One, just acknowledge how you're feeling. They've done studies where they've taken MRI scans of people's brains, which shows the activity, so it's functional brain imaging, and they've shown them different pictures, and people feel emotions, and then they've got a group to verbalize how they feel, literally saying, I feel stressed, I feel anxious, I feel low, I feel crap, whatever it is, just saying it out loud. And what they find is that whenever you say that, the frontal lobe, the frontal part of your brain becomes activated, and it dampens down the part of your brain responsible for emotion. So there's an older evolutionary part of your brain called the limbic system that relates to emotion, and that fires up. When you say how you feel, that reduces. So actually, that emotion that you feel, just by acknowledging how you feel and saying it out loud, it becomes less. So we feel a little bit less anxious, a little bit less frustrated, a little bit less angry. Doing that breathing, creating a bit of space. And if you need to, sometimes it's good to get yourself out of the situation if you can. So if you're in the kitchen, literally put on your shoes and just go for a walk, get some fresh air. Or if you're in the supermarket at the time, just don't walk down the biscuit aisle. It's not going to help anyone. And then, like you're saying, once the emotion can dampen down, we can think a little bit more clearly. But it's whenever that emotion is really high that it's very difficult to make good decisions, because we're being driven by a different part of our brain.
Yeah. So you've helped a lot of people with their mindset around this, the whole, weight maintenance thing.
Yeah.
There's so many different bits that go with it. So what sort of what sort of results have you seen from people? How have they reacted to finally being freed from the diet mentality?
It's I feel very privileged to have been part of people's journeys, because so far I've been very lucky where it's had big effects on people's lives. So to give you an example, one client, because often people end up opening up to you throughout the process, and she was saying that she really didn't ever think change was possible. Like, she thought she'd reach a stage in her life where that was it, and she wouldn't ever be able to lose weight or change uh, how she looks and how she feels. More importantly, um, she didn't even like looking in mirrors. She wouldn't ever look in a mirror. She didn't have mirror. She didn't really. I don't think she really had mirrors in the house, but she would always avoid them. And she thought that was it, and that was her life. And so, being in a stage where she's lost weight, but in a sustainable way. But I think what's more important is that she can see a way out for the future. Like, she can see a different path and a different trajectory, and she's got hope, and she knows that actually what she's doing is sustainable. Because a lot of the time, what people say to me is that it's so much easier than they thought. They thought it would be really difficult, and a huge struggle and a huge daily battle. But actually, whenever you say, I say to people, no foods are banned. You can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. That's completely up to you. It's just about making conscious choice. When nothing's banned, certain things become less enticing. Like, it's not, oh, I could have 3 bread rolls with my dinner, but actually it's just less appealing because I've got this more important goal to me right now. So it becomes easier to say, no, I actually don't want that. I'd rather have what I'm having right now. Um, and so to have that hope and belief in yourself, and to know that change is possible, and it's really touching. And also, and to get to the extent, to the place where you can then look in the mirror and actually start to recognize parts of your body that you like, and start to feel good about yourself, is really, really touching and really lovely. Um, and so, yeah, it is very touching, and it's often, but the thing that people keep on saying to me is, the amazing thing is, it's all about the mind. Like, it's all about the inner game. We get so caught up in trying to make external changes, just eat less, eat more, eat less, do more exercise, eat more healthily. People generally know that, but we overlook the inner game. Whenever your mind is in the right place, it just becomes so much easier.
Yeah, I think that is something that people forget about quite easily, because I think people take it for granted that we should be able to stick to some really stringent rules. When
Yeah,
actually, yeah, like circling back around what you said at the beginning, it's not your fault.
yeah,
Yeah, if you can't stick to something.
absolutely. And there's two things that came into my mind there, which could be quite important. One, just like you said, I think you put it beautifully. It's not your fault.
Mm.
It's not your fault that you have a brain that craves sugary, salty, fatty foods. That's not your fault. You were born with it. You didn't ask for it. That's the way that your brain operates. It's not your fault that your mind has a mind of its own, and it gives you really bad advice at times. And it says, do you know what? Just have it. Have more. Have another slice. Where there's another part of your brain that says, do you know, this is not a good idea. That's not your fault that you have, this dialogue in your head that goes on. It's the way that your mind has evolved. But once we know it, it is in our responsibility to think, okay, how can I be a bit more flexible with my rules, not be so extreme, and take what I call the middle road. As soon as we go to extremes on either way, I generally advise against it. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can even just be, like we're saying, a 5-minute walk, or one training session here, or improving the quality of one meal a day. Um, it's in our responsibility to do that once a day. A bit like if you're a dog owner, you can't change the nature of your dog, but if your dog is continually snapping at other dogs and being aggressive. It's our responsibility to be able to manage that dog in a helpful way to get the best outcome. And the other thing that I'd say is expectations. Not only are we really conditioned to have really quick expectations of progress, of just doing things for a short period of time, but we expect things to happen so much more quickly than they actually take. And that's tough for people, but we have to remember that the weight didn't come on overnight. This is often for people generally people put 1 to 2 pounds on every year. So actually, this is take a look back at your own life, and it's probably built up over 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 years. It won't change overnight. It won't change in a month or even 3 months. This is the long game. This is about making gradual, sustainable changes to my lifestyle, not just for 6 months, but genuinely for the rest of my life. So if you don't think you can sustain that and you're not going to enjoy it, I would say don't do it. Find something that you can sustain and that you will enjoy, because it will probably take longer than you think, but it will be worth it.
Yeah, that's a great way of concluding it, I think. So thank you very much for joining us, and I hope that for anybody watching you found it helpful, and hopefully we'll hear from Dr. Aria again sometime. Thank you very much.
Not at all. If anyone does a free mindful eating guide on my website, if anyone does find themselves overeating, and also on Instagram, I'm often giving out different little tips and pieces of advice, just daily practical things that you can put into play. So
yeah, we'll put a post up on manvyfat.com, and we'll include all the links to Dr. Aria's website. I had a look at your Instagram. It is really motivational and really helpful. So yeah, look out for that on manvyfat.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.